Welcome, Dungeon Plunger Union members. I have my +1 plunger, a cup of coffee flavored holy water, and a very special Union member with me today to help plunge the dungeon and flush evil down the drain. This week we have YouTube sensation, author, and co host of the Modern Mythos podcast. Welcome to the show, Seth Skorkowsky.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Dude, if you don't say the thing, then they're not going to think they're going to be
Oh,
like, he's an AI generated
oh,
guest.
hello, Internet. I assume that's the thing.
That's the thing.
Okay.
Do you get asked to do that all the time or
I do. And so that came about because I think around the time I was starting the channel, so back in the days there was a website called Crack that was really freaking funny, and then they
Mhm.
fired all of their people. And Dan O'Brien, who later went on to do Last Week Tonight, with some Emmy awards and everything there, used to do a show where he actually opened it with "Hello, the Internet,"
Mm.
and I always thought that was I love that because it's so stupid sounding. You know, like "Hello, the Internet." So I just said "Hello, Internet" as like the same thing. Actually, my earliest videos, I'm doing variations. I just kind of settle on "Hello, Internet," but yeah, because it's such a dumb thick intro.
I don't know. I think it's awesome. I think a lot of people think it's awesome.
But it ended up becoming like one of my signature phrases, which I totally stole from Dan O'Brien. But he left Crack, so like it was like available. I
Nice.
picked it up on the rebound. So
That's awesome. That's great. I love it. So I this channel has been all about, trying to provide game masters with tangible, actionable advice on how to be a better game master. And um, I couldn't think of a better guest to have than someone like you who has been for years now reviewing stuff on your channel, providing tons of great advice on how to run games. And one of the things that really struck me is that you're all about skill-based games. So you really highlighted, you started off with Cyberpunk 2020. I'm not sure if Call of Cthulhu came next and then Traveler,
yeah.
but I mean, all of these are skill-based games, and I love these games as well. Not that I've played a lot of Cyberpunk 2020. I played a little bit of Cyberpunk Red, but um, there's certain elements of a skill-based game that I've struggled with, and I'm sure that I'm not alone in this. So I kind of wanted to like pick your brain a little bit and kind of like talk about um, you know, your perspective on skill-based games. So maybe if we could start off with what is it about skill-based games that you're really drawn to?
Okay. Well, I mean, for those that don't know what we're talking about, so a skill-based game is, well, you have your level-based or class-based. The people call them both things, which is you have a character class who has a level. Most famous of these, of course, being Dungeons and Dragons. I'm a seventh level wizard or eighth level fighter, whatever it is, and with those, you gain your experience points, or maybe you do milestone leveling or whatnot. But when you gain a level, you get all of the benefits that kind of come to you, and you have abilities that are based off of your class or whatever. And there are certain things you might not be able to do based off of your class and whatnot, which is usually like wizards can't use the martial weapons the same way that a fighter can and whatnot. Anyway, a skill based game is also referred to as classless. There, you don't have a character class. You might have a profession, you might have an archetype, but there is nothing that actually is a set defining of what skills make you you. You have access to just pretty much everything, and you raise those individually. So one of the things I like about that is that actually does feel more realistic to me. Back in the old days of AD&D, it's like, so my wizard can use a knife, but if I attach that knife to a stick, I can't use a spear. Yeah, that makes no damn sense. Sort of, like Gandalf had a sword. Why can't my wizard have a sword? That sort of thing. why is the thief the only one that can pick a lock? I mean, come on, I can watch a couple of YouTube videos and start, like ingesting a bunch of lock picking lawyer and pick that up, right? So, I prefer that method to where you don't have the limitation of I can't do that because of my class, and I'm never going to be able to do that well or at all because of my class. Or kind of the idea of the joke we used to actually give a lot was, you know, I killed the Goblin King and now I can play the mandolin. Where all of a sudden you get the XPs and all of a sudden like you get all of these cool new abilities that might not really make a lot of sense. Yeah, you have to kind of like, well, off camera you were practicing and stuff like that. So with a skill based game, sometimes your the specific skills that go up are depending on them using them, which is what BRP does with Call of Cthulhu. If you use this skill, you might get to improve the skill. Games like Call of Cthulhu, it's if you're successful. Delta Green, you have to actually fail it in order to do it. So Delta Green, if you're like making all your rolls, it's like, yeah, you're not improving. But if you're trying the rolls and you're failing, you might improve. So there's different ways of doing it. Others, it's kind of like point buy. Cyberpunk is one of those where you can, at the end of your adventure, you get so many improvement points, and you can like buy your individual skills up. So I love that aspect. I also really hate hit point bloat and all of those things that come with levels. I always kind of like started capping out my interest in the D&D game around eighth level because they start getting really powerful and they start becoming much more difficult to threaten. All of a sudden, everybody becomes like a powerhouse in and of themselves. They stop working together as much. Even when you remind them, they kind of slowly forget, and the fighter is charging off one way, and this, and as a game master, you're kind of like, okay, so it's really difficult for me to figure out what is just challenging enough that I'm not going to just curb stomp them, or they're not just going to like blow over, my opponents, and it's not challenging at all to them. So what I like about skill based games is usually your hit points are pretty static. Like they're not going to be moving much. And with Cyberpunk, the way I would describe it to people is like a street kid with a switchblade is always a threat. Like always. Now you might be better at dodging, you might be faster than them, you might have your armor, but that switchblade will always ruin your day. Just because you got stabbed. Getting stabbed ruins your day. So that's one of the things that I liked about it is it did have that. While the characters are improving, they didn't become these kind of superheroes, and where it becomes a lot more difficult for them to feel threatened by an opponent because they don't just suddenly have a lot of hit points. They can be a lot harder to hit, but if that hit connects, and there's always a chance with the dice, it will hurt their day. And so any conflict they have is a life or death threat. That's never I guess lost, where your fighter is going up against that one kobold and they can just drink a beer while getting attacked for 6 rounds because they've got 200 hit points and who gives a damn. So that's one of the things that I like about skill based games is I can make characters that I feel are more realistic because no one is a class in real life. People change stuff and that. So that's one of the things I like is it has that realism, but it also keeps that inherent risk and that threat, which I think is necessary to make role playing games fun. At least for me. If it's not as much fun for the players to be victorious if they didn't feel like, oh my god, we were in danger. So it's just a lot. It's a lot easier for them to feel that there was a real legitimate risk. So
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. This is sort of where like I still really enjoy playing D&D. Um I don't think that there's anything. I know there's some people out there who really hate class and level. But for me, I mean, there's like your power fantasy kind of game or just to have that nice little niche protection. Like this is what my character does. And I know how to role play that kind of thing.
oh,
Um,
and that's That's one thing I learned doing YouTube and talking to people is how many people really kind of rely on I am I am the cleric. I know exactly what my role is. And 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 when they would start trying a skill-based game, they suddenly felt kind of lost because there isn't a like a pre like set kind of boundary of like you are the tank, you are the healer, you are the long range spellcaster, whatever. So all of a sudden they've got their archetypes, but they're like, but even though like in Cyberpunk I'm the solo, I'm the fighter, I should be the badass. The medic over there's actually got a way better rifle skill than I do, and like. Why does that? Why is the healer a badass with an assault rifle and I'm kind of lame? And it doesn't really mesh with them. So some people really do like that, and I think most of us start with D&D. I mean, most gamers do, and I think that's a really the classes and stuff are a wonderful kind of training wheels to kind of teach kind of new gamers the idea of like we need to work together because you're strong at things that I'm just not strong at, and that it's really cool to be very good at certain things because when you're classless, you have to kind of decide what is it I want to be really good at, and what is it I'm going to let the other people handle for me, because if with those, if you try to be good at everything, you're just going to suck at everything. So it's like you have to kind of choose your focus. But it's kind of nice to have a system set up that kind of does that for you, and it feels so damn good to raise a level. I mean, it just does. Where it's also like your spellcaster. It's like, oh my god, I got fifth level spells all of a sudden. It's like, yeah, and like like, oh my god, I hit triple digits on hit points. Yeah, I mean, it feels good. So never going to take that away from it. D&D was my primary game for like 17 years. And we left and I came back for fifth edition, did another year. So I can say it was my primary game for 18 years of my life. So it's like, I had a lot of fun with it. And I'm never going to tell people that it like sucks because, like I'm not going to tell them they're not having fun. They clearly are. So yeah, there are a lot of benefits to it. It's just over the years, I kind of decided that's what I prefer. And that was also one of the things that caused me to leave D&D and start exploring other things was that kind of realization that there were just certain things about classes and levels that just never totally sat right with me. And after enough years, like those little irritations start becoming just straight out annoyances. Like, oh my god, yeah, it's just so dumb. And then all of a sudden you discover like classless games. You're like, oh, because by the time we made our switch, we had house ruled our AD&D game to the point it probably wasn't recognizable as AD&D anymore. I mean, we had pulled in all sorts of different stuff just to kind of try to build a classless game without really understanding what a classless game was. So it was a tangled mess. So people are like, "Can I see your house rules?" Like, I don't probably understand my own house rules anymore. I don't think I ever understood them. It was a combobulation. But so no, I think level based games are fine. I've still played a few of them, but when I am picking up a new game, like the few times I find a new game at a bookstore, which is increasingly rare these days, unless you're going to like a good comic and game shop that's got a lot of inventory. One of the first things I'll do is I will open it up and I will check: has this got character classes or not? And if it does, my interest very often bottoms out. Like, and I'll move on. So sometimes I'm like, you know what? Let's just keep going. I can roll with this because whatever it was unique and exciting for me enough that I would keep reading. Which Righteous Blood, Ruthless Blades was one of those. And it's one of those like when you read deeper, it's like, well, there are levels, but it's also kind of pretty much a skill based, but it's kind of a in the middle because it's a lot of games do not fall completely into one or the other. I mean, there's a whole spectrum. So, but if I see that there are character classes and experience points or whatever they call them, that to me is a really big like, and this is something like really good because this is already, my interest is beginning to fade. So I just prefer the skill based method because that's my jam.
So like one of the things that you were talking about was sort of that hybrid level skill-based game, which I feel like Savage Worlds really kind of fits into. Like there's no real, I don't know if you've played Savage Worlds, but
To my shame, I have never played Savage Worlds. I have been told a million times I would love Savage Worlds. I've just never picked it up.
it does feel like it would be something up your alley, but it has the skill list is very refined, which I guess is another way of saying it's a small list of skills that are attached to your sort of like ability scores. I don't know. I think like Savage World people might be like yelling right now, going, "Dude, that's not how you describe it." But and then there is sort of like a level up. So like you kind of gain feats or abilities as you gain more experience, right? But really, I mean, you're always rolling these sort of like abilities or skill checks to do things.
Yeah.
Um,
And Cyberpunk is actually a lot like that because it has it does have special abilities for whatever your profession is. So there is a level sort of aspect to it, but at the same time, it's 95% a pure skill based game. Except it's kind of got this little holdovers, and those are fine. When you're mentioning the skill list, man, one of the things with skill based games is there is this weird dance of like not enough skills and way damn too many skills. And it's actually very often like a razor's edge. Like where you go from like, we don't have enough. Let me add three more. My God, that's way too many. I'm overwhelmed. So there is kind of an art form that I think a lot of the designers have to do of like, what is the perfect number that is like, you feel like there's a lot that you like, oh, this is really, really good versus, too limiting, or like there's so many skills, we don't give them enough skill points that they can even be competent in basic things anymore. So there is a magic that every skill based game does kind of have to like figure out that perfect balance to it, which I think a lot of the earlier ones they leaned on too many. Like a lot of the old games, there was like much longer skill lists, and then they kind of like refined them.
well, I feel like BRP is sort of like that in the sense that like through Call of Cthulhu's history, they've kind of like added skills, taken away skills, put them into other stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, they used to like kick and punch were two different skills, and like
Yeah,
knife. And then now they're just called all brawl. Like, okay, look, it's just one fighting skill until you start getting into weird stuff. Yeah, it's like brawl because it's like, well, I can't kick them because my kick is like at 10%, but my fist is at 80, which some people are like, no, it's really good because it means they're a boxer and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, but all of a sudden you still have so many skills and you've only got so many points to put among them. That means like
exactly.
you don't know how to like read because you want to know how to punch, and it just becomes a little bit too much. So there is that kind of where is that magic number or thing. And but Call of Cthulhu, one of the things that's amazing with it, why BRP is so elegant, I mean, it just is you can still pick up a first edition Call of Cthulhu adventure and just run it like without any effort. Like like a lot of people are like, what do you do for your conversions? Like I do nothing for my conversions. I just run it because it's still the same system. Unlike a lot of other games, D&D being a prime example, first and second AD&D were real backwards compatible. Yeah, there were changes, but usually didn't notice. But then all of a sudden you had like third, fourth, fifth edition where it was like a complete reimagining. It's really hard to like pick up a third edition adventure and just run it straight out of the book using fifth edition. You have to like, okay, yeah, these spells are not different levels and all sorts of, it's really weird. Like these feats don't exist anymore. And these feats do exist that it never accounted for. So BRP, it's actually really elegant in the sense that while they have refined it, several times over the past 40 something years, it's still like it still runs.
It really is impressive. I'm not exactly sure what it is exactly about because So the first time that I played Call of Cthulhu, which was probably like in some point like 5.5-ish or something, like I don't know, whatever edition that was. Um and uh to me, I was like, "Oh my God, we roll a percentile. You want to roll under, meet or less than your skill and you succeed." And I was like, "This is so simple." And I don't know if that's what it is that makes it like it's had legs for this long, where it's so intuitive for anybody to start playing this game and then kind of add on the little extra stuff that kind of makes it a little, maybe a little more complicated. And even then,
Even then, like even at its most complicated, it's pretty freaking simple. I mean, it's only when you start getting to like, I'm going to send my character to a psychotherapist in order to start doing that. It's like when we start getting into like those really special rules, which are usually the off-camera stuff, where it's on, it's not those don't come up in us during the middle of a session. Those are usually like the in between sessions sort of rules. Those are actually where the most complicated stuff is. But once you make a character, like all the math's already done. You don't have to like, okay, so I roll this, then I add this and this and this, and I put it together, but then I take off this, and I'm trying to hit this target number. It's like you have a 43% chance. Roll. Did you get 43 or lower? Then you made it, and done. So with like Call of Cthulhu, I can take a complete newbie to role playing games, and I can get them playing like immediately. Where it's like let's just start, and you will understand this almost immediately when we start to it. So it's just very very quick. Like here's your hit points, here's your stats. Roll this, roll under. This is how percentile dice work. Let's go, and that's pretty much it. You're not like saying like take your strength and then take your class plus, then like any pluses of your magic weapon or whatever. It's like, no, it's just all right there and go. I love, oh my God, I love the simplicity of it. I had veteran gamers who I guess they were like not used to that, who almost looked at me like I was about to spring the complexity on them because they're so mistrusting. And you're like, oh no, it's easy. And all of a sudden you pull out like the scroll of rules and you're like, you're kidding me, right? So like my buddy Jerry, when I introduced him to Call of Cthulhu, was like, he kept waiting for that other shoe to drop. And we're like, no, man, that's literally it. And he's like, yeah. He was like real suspicious. One of the things I also describe is what I call games that are forward complex versus backward complex. Dungeons and Dragons Fifth Edition is back complex, and what that means is when you pick it up and you read like combat, it's real simple. I mean, like it's really really simple. And you're like, oh my God, I got this. I got it, and you can go. But once you start adding all of your racial abilities and your class abilities, then you start adding levels because at each level a new one opens up. So as you play, it gets more and more and more complicated because all of a sudden you've got like 5 players and your ranger's got this weird ability that just suddenly started up, and so and so's got their dwarven ability and whatnot. So that short like combat section you read is really just the tip of the iceberg, because then after that it's like all it's based off what the players bring in, and like all these new rules come up. So a lot of gamers, because most of us start with D&D, we're kind of used to the idea that these games are constantly you're learning new stuff, and that it gets more and more complicated. So whatever you see at the very beginning, that's just the tip, right? So whenever I've done stuff like trying to do my YouTube stuff and I'm explaining how like Call of Cthulhu or Traveler or whatnot work, and I go through, this is how combat works. And a lot of them are like, that's just so complicated. I could never get all that. I'm like, this is like a million times easier than D&D. But they're also looking at it from the point, this is what the base you start is. And their imagination just gets so much worse. And it's like, no, this is it. This is literally all of it. Like,
right. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't actually think about that.
there's no more. But if you just pick up the manuals and you read them, D&D looks much simpler than Call of Cthulhu. And Call of Cthulhu is not difficult, but if you're just going by those sections alone, D&D actually looks a lot easier. but because it's not taking into account all of the other stuff that will happen and as you gain levels is going to continue to happen. So that's what I mean by one of them's complicated on the back end and the other is like front end. Call of Cthulhu, like you read it, you're done. That's all you'll ever need. And,
That's a great point. So how do you handle, because this is one of the things that's happened to me where um we're sitting down around the table, um and I'm like, all right, I need to make a skill check. And or I need somebody to make a skill check or everybody at the table to make a skill check. And it's like, how do you handle the sheer number of skills that these players have?
um, so if it's a game I'm very familiar with, I usually know this stuff. Actually, if it's a game I'm very familiar with because I played it a lot. Because players actually understand the character sheet way faster than the game master does. And so other things like with like Call of Cthulhu, with that one, middle section of the character sheet where all the skills are, I printed that thing on a heavy cardstock. I cut off the top and bottom, and that's behind my screen. Because of all the stuff that's behind the screen, what's not there is your freaking list of what skills you're supposed to call for. And but before the show, and we're just kind of chit chatting, it brought up like, well, these are my social, these are my fighting. You kind of want to group them. It's like, man, just hit that thing with a highlighter or Photoshop, where it's like, if it's green, it's a social skill. If it's red, it's a combat skill. That way, your eyes can just quickly navigate it. But it's also laid out the same, so that way, if you've got a new player and they're like, where is dodge? It's on the first column, second from the top, second from the bottom. They're like, oh, there it is. So you don't want to like reorganize it because you still want to be able to coach someone new through it. But I also did the same thing with Traveler. Like, what was behind the screen, the middle section of the character sheet that my players used, because that's where all the skills were. And I could learn to remember what skills this game has and kind of what they were related to. Because if you don't, sometimes you just forget that there's a skill for that. Or you forget like, well, this could be done with multiple skills. So, but kind of your question of like, so your players like, I want to roll skill check for that. Sometimes there are multiple skills that can work. Yeah, Call of Cthulhu social skills. There's like four social skills: do on a charm, persuade, whatever, intimidate them, and those are actually pretty set. But like when you get stuff like Traveler, it does a skill plus stat. But you determine the stat. So it is actually way looser in how you want to do it. So like Persuade is like, I want to use Persuade, but I want to use my Strength as the stat off of it. Like, okay, so we're probably doing an Intimidate then, right? Like, yeah. I want to do an Intimidate because I am physically strong. Like, okay. Or if you want to get past a guard, there's like 6 skills you could use for it, and some of them are just totally off the wall different from each other. But it's like, how do you approach it? And the player says how they approach it. It's like, okay, this is how we do it. And if you've got a really competent player who understands what skills their character is good at and what stats their character is good at, they can absolutely kick ass because they learn how to look at it that way. Where it's like, there isn't a set skill for blank. There is a skill that is usually for blank, but if you can come up with a way to use this other one, by all means, go to town. And I really like that. At first, it's kind of weird because I need the book to tell me exactly what skill to use for this exact same situation. The book's like, 90% of the time it'll be this, but we don't want to like, we don't want to make you feel limited, buddy. And you're like, could you please limit me? And so I'm afraid of all my options. So it kind of took us a while with that to like kind of like really encourage each other to like, man, look at what your character sheet says. Like not just what skills you have, but what stats and ways you can combo those. And sometimes they'll come up with a really goofy one. And you as the game master, you're like, no.
Seriously.
You do need a game master that can like, no, you can't use your strength to like do the hang glider or something. It's like, not buying that. You can't persuade your car to move faster. So, but it does allow a lot more creativity of thought. But you do still have to have a game master that's one open minded to like, okay, tell me how that's going to work, and also can be like, oh no. So that is also part of the GM skills is not too close minded, but not too open to absolutely anything. But yeah, no, that's the stuff I love, man.
I tend to agree. That's kind of how I have been doing it. Um, I feel like there is a learning curve. Like you said, it's a combination of players understanding what they have, and then also as a game master understanding what the players have and what's available to them, and then sort of like you said, being open-minded enough to be like, yeah, man, that's cool. Like if you can sell it, I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah, because look, at the end of the day, I want my players to like be badasses and succeed, but I also want to
Right.
challenge them.
Right.
And I think a lot of people, they whenever I talk about that, they're like, well, the game master is supposed to be completely unbiased. Well, it's like whatever. I'm here with my friends, man. I want my friends to have a kick ass time. But part of what lets them have a kick ass time is I challenged them. I want when they complete the adventure, kill the bad guy, they're like, oh my god, that nearly went. Yeah, it's totally the wrong way. So yeah, well, I'm like doing horrible things, and sometimes yeah, I'm killing a player character or whatnot. Like I'm really rooting for them. So if they say, hey, I have an unconventional way, I want to overcome this obstacle, I'd like to use my skill this way. The game's a lot more fun if I go, yeah, let's try it. So it's like, yeah, I'm open to what you have to say. I mean, I'll say no if I think it's terrible, but otherwise, like, okay, you gave your argument. Roll. Let's see what the hell happens. And that's just a lot more fun for everyone in the room. So I'm way more leaning towards like, give me a good argument, and I am willing to give you some grace here. But I've also done this long enough. There are certain obvious like weird exploits. Like, yeah, I'm not going to say yes because if I say yes to that, all this other stuff ends up. But that's just experience. So
So what do you say to a player who's constantly spamming that one skill that they're good at, and they're like, well, I don't have a good example in my mind right now, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Where
yeah,
and it's frustrating because it's like, like I guess when it comes down to it is exactly what you're talking about, challenging the player. It's like I want this to be a challenge. There's a reason why there are so many skills and you just don't have it. So what are you going to do? Like you're going to have to rely on something else maybe. I don't know. Like how do you approach that situation?
so yeah, that type of thing, where it's like all I got's a hammer, everything's a nail sort of
Hmm.
situation. That one is most often you'll find with like social skills.
Okay.
Like, I'm really good at charm, so I want to use charm for everything. Like, okay, a lot of, so yes, I have had that where it's like, oh, we use charm for everything. Like, but what you're describing isn't charming. That's actually the angle I do of like, okay, so you want to charm the person you're interrogating into giving up their boss and whatnot. Like, yeah, tell me how. Like, you don't have to give me word for word because I
Right.
know you as a player don't have a 80 charm, and none of us have like the 3 hours for you to explain in detail the entire conversation that you have, right? It's like, but
Right.
come on, give me, like, I just want, how do you approach this? And a lot of the times they're like, I don't know. Now,
Mm.
there are times they say that, and I can think of a way, and I'll kind of listen to them. And and if they're new, I mean, I'll throw out some like, well, I mean, you could, do it that way. And kind of like, this is, like, I'm not saying no, but,
Right.
kind of think about how you want to approach this problem charmingly. But, because a lot of times I would have like, I want to charm him and I'm going to threaten to break his arm if he doesn't tell us. Like, okay, so that is definitely not charm. That is
Right.
definitely intimidate.
Right.
Oh, and
Mhm.
and also it's really weird. I did this actual specific example in a video, And the next part that I said is, but hey, instead of that, what can you do that's charming? The player came up with a way they could do it. I'm like,
Right.
okay, we'll do that instead, because that's what your character's good at. Your character probably would not instinctively go, I want to break your arm. That's my player. You're deep down a murder hobo, and I know you've been fighting it for years. And a lot of people are like, I can't believe you would let him try it again. Like, well, he never rolled. We're just kind of talking about ways he would do it, and
Right.
like we'll bounce ideas because ultimately I want him to roll. I want him to get the information, but I also want him to put some real thought into it, even if that includes, you're right, I can't use the skill in this way. But if they can come up with a great answer, yeah. But at the same time, sometimes you do just have to throw in, especially with social skills. Like, I don't care what you roll, no charisma check is ever going to make the king, give you his crown. Like that's not
Right.
going to happen. Period.
Right.
They're not going to go against whatever their intrinsic thing is. So as a game master, you still do have to like know to like put that line. One of the other things which I do in Call of Cthulhu is because I like my players to work together,
Hmm.
is it has the psychology skill, which in other games you call it insight or human perception, where you learn to read people, and it's usually treated like a truth meter. Are
Right.
they telling me the truth? I treat it as if you're looking at your mark, you've got your goon, and they know the thing, and you want to know the thing that they know. You have whoever it is with the best psychology look at them, and then they can go, okay, intimidation's not going to work on this guy, but you can probably persuade them, and that will give a bonus die to whoever attempts
Mm.
that skill. And I do that because it allows the team to work together
Mm.
because whoever is the best at psychology, whoever makes that roll, probably isn't the best at whatever skill it is. Now the thing is, I don't know what the answer is until they roll. I don't write that down beforehand.
Right.
But I also have, if you fumble, it's going to be the worst, and you're going to have a penalty die with whatever it is, because you're going to walk in there and say, okay, definitely we want to intimidate this guy when you really should have been charming him, but
Right.
whoever
Right. Right.
read him the wrong way. And I really like that type of ways that you can have your group work together, where it's like, okay, I want to talk my way past this guard. I'm absolutely crap at reading people, but I want to give myself an advantage. So,
Right.
Tommy, you come along and we're gonna do this, and you tell me what's the best thing that'll work on this person. And I also think that's realistic. I mean, at least
Mm-hmm. A hundred
that's how
percent.
popular media works, where it's all like, you can't intimidate him, but you can, but he isn't
Mm-hmm.
willing to listen to reason, which is what we call persuade. Or
Right.
like, this guy's not willing to listen to reason, but you might be able to charm him because his mom never loved him. Just whatever, right? So
Right.
I will allow this kind of non-conventional use of the skill because I think that's just a lot more cool to do it that way. But I can give them a plus because ultimately I want them to get past the guard and I want them to go into whatever it is and see the cool ass adventure and have a great time. So, it does benefit me.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. That's such a great idea. I'd never actually considered that before. I There must be other skills that you can use like that. Because now you're making my brain kind of, you know, roll around and think about this. Because I love that idea of the teamwork and everybody, rolling dice is fun. So, any chance that you can get your players to do that and it serves a purpose, which kind of leads me into like something else that I wanted to ask. So kind of like one of the common tenets in role playing is that you don't need to make the players roll all the time, right? Like sometimes you can just give them the information or the whatever if it seems reasonable. Like there's like for instance in Delta Green, right? If your skill is high enough, it's like you just kind of know how to like do stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
I was ready for Delta Green as my first example. What's
right.
because I mentioned Delta Green. So yeah, if you
Yeah.
have 50% in that, you're considered pretty damn competent. You probably have a college degree in whatever the skill is, or you might have been doing this professionally for a long time. So it's kind of like you don't need to make a skill check to do like a Google search, or you don't need to, you don't need to do a skill check that like a noob would have to do a skill check. You're good enough, man. Like
Right.
we'll save that for like the real times. And I actually really love that because
Okay.
yes, players love rolling dice, and I love them rolling dice. Sometimes it leads to the best stories. But nothing sucks more than like you fail a skill roll on something that your character is like super capable at, and you're like, what do you mean I didn't know how to plug in my guitar? I'm a professional musician. I mean, like, give me a break. And I think that that disappointment, that frustration,
Hmm.
is worse. So it's like, okay, we're just going to lean towards you're competent. You don't have to roll, and it makes the player feel good. Like I have a
Right.
50 in this. None of you do. You know, you guys have to roll. I can just do it
Right.
until it becomes actual difficult. And then, yeah, we all have to roll it, but I still have the higher skill roll, so I'm still probably the one you want to do it. I love that.
S-
It it took me a long time to learn that.
Right.
Uh, I think, my God, we had been playing Cyberpunk for like 7, 8 years, like as our exclusive game. And then when I read seventh edition Call of Cthulhu, I'm sitting down and reading the Keeper's Guide, and it just says that like you don't need to make them like roll a drive check to like drive to the store to get smokes. That was one of the most mind blowing sentences I'd ever read in my life. The most obvious thing in the world
Right.
was like, oh my God, you're right. Because in Cyberpunk, you have no idea how many cars and motorcycles we totaled. Just like, your fixer calls you, says like, hey, meet me at this bar. I got a job for you. Somebody totals their car the way there. I mean, it happened all the time. And we're like, this janky system is it's awful. Blah blah blah. Blah. Like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah. It's like, and all of a sudden, like, I read like, hey, you have permission to like this obvious situation. And it's like, oh my God, I'm a moron. We're all morons. It never occurred to a single one of us.
You never you never wrote an angry letter to Mike Pondsmith being like, dude, what's up with this, man? We keep
Yeah.
crashing our cars before we get to the job.
Oh my God. But it's one of those like you look back on it like, oh, that is so obvious, and I'm a moron. But a lot of stuff like it took how many thousands of years before somebody figured out how a wheel works. So it's
Right.
kind of the like some things are really obvious in hindsight. So with that kind of revelation, with the fact that I had my mind blown on like GMing 101, and I've been doing it for decades at this point, um, the concept of your character is at this level skill, you don't even need a roll, um, really flows with me for the same reason, because there's no reason that a character who rides everywhere on a motorcycle can't just get on the motorcycle and go to the grocery store and come back without having a 10 or 20% chance of totaling it and dying every time they get on a motorcycle. So it's like, so that did work much more naturally, uh, just based off that experience. I think if I was coming in cold, it might seem wrong to me. If I hadn't endured years of the opposite, I'd be like, man, I don't know, man. I think they should have to roll every time. There was an old statement back when AD&D came out. There was like nobody fell off a horse till they made a horse riding skill. Uh, because once they added non-weapon proficiencies and there was a ride skill, like no player character ever once fell off a horse until there was a ride skill. If there was a problem, we all hopped on our horses and we rode and we dealt with the problem. And we were awesome and we were badasses. But all of a sudden we had a ride skill, and half of us are falling off our horses half the time. We looked like the Three Stooges. You're like, it is, and they were blaming the skill when really what it was that implementation of like, this is just a basic. You're just riding to the castle, right? Like, yeah, no one's chasing you. Yeah, okay, then you get there.
I feel like this is one of the like I don't know how like in tune you are with the OSR and stuff like that, but um I mean it feels like that's one of the tenets there where the like skills ruined D&D, especially like the thief class was like all of a sudden now you had these abilities to be able to like unlock doors and do all these climb walls and do all these other kinds of things. And yet and so they're like, listen, if you want to search a room, like tell me how you're searching the room, and you're ripping the mattress open and you're doing this kind of stuff and then there's that sort of like attack on like third edition where it was like, nah man, just roll your like search check, and if you succeed you find the thing, and if you don't, well, I guess you don't find it. um so that's kind of a strange tension I find, because I feel like kind of how we've been discussing, it's like, listen, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing, right? You can decide to be like, no, 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 you're just gonna find the thing or you're not. And so I guess to like put that into an example, it would be like, how would you handle like searching for a clue in a room, but this was like a core clue that they need to find. Like, so Gumshoe kind of changed that kind of idea in my mind, where it was like, no, no, dude, just give them the clues they need, and um how their understanding of what that clue means is way more important. And if there's any other like tangential things, maybe make them roll for that kind of stuff. Where do you stand on that?
Very much in a confused middle. Like, I love the idea of Gumshoe. Like the way you described it is like, oh, actually found it a lot less exciting because it's like you get to the place, here's all the clues you find, sort of thing. It's like, oh, I, I feel like I was just being narrated to versus I was playing the game.
Mm, right.
So that was kind of like how I felt when we've tried Gumshoe. Is I'm like, I don't feel like I'm playing anymore. I feel like I'm just being handed stuff and having the game master narrate to me, and uh, that wasn't as fulfilling. I love the concept though. I
Hmm.
just, yeah, this, theory versus reality sort of thing. I came from AD&D first edition. So yeah, I mean, I was used to like, okay, we're searching the room, and you go through the list. I'm looking under the rugs. I'm checking the backs of the drawers. I'm looking under the drawers. I'm checking every chest for false bottoms. Yada 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 yada. And it becomes like this mantra where you kind of
Hmm.
like trance out, and you name the 900 things, and your dungeon master's sitting there waiting for you to say that you're gonna like flip the painting over and cut the paper off the back, and there's the map. And if you don't specifically state how you're going to the sock drawer, you're not going to find the key or whatever it is. It's in the
Hmm.
sock drawer. And like that's more realistic. It's like that is so freaking tedious.
I
And
agree.
there's this gotchaism. And I hate that. I loved it when I was 15 because I was a little monster. But as an adult, like, no, it's not as much fun. It's fun the first time, maybe the second, but around the
Right.
20th, you're like, just kill me. Um, so I told you about my friend Jerry, who had we're introduced to Call of Cthulhu, and the whole time he's like waiting for the other shoe to drop. Searching was one of the big areas. It took him forever to wrap his head around because
Right.
he and I actually used to play in college a long, long time ago, and he's been playing D&D for years. You know, life happens, comes in the group, but we've now been playing Call of Cthulhu for years, and we're like, okay, check this out. You're like, roll your spot because they said they're searching there. I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, he found the thing. And then he starts like, okay, well, I'm gonna start like searching under the cushions and stuff. And it's like he actually had a like an extreme success or something. Like, he rolled
Okay.
really good. And I'm like,
Nice.
and I'm like, okay, well, at that point you're kind of like pushing the roll and stuff, but like the idea that he didn't have to go through all of this and try to figure out the like correctly guess what it was. We're like, no, man, that's what that role represented. That you actually did take a few minutes and you looked between the couch cushions and you did this stuff. Now, if you didn't make it, that then we could do a push roll, and that's when I want you to kind of explain that stuff. But it's still going to come down to this. I want to stab at you if you just happen to name it. Like, I'm going to look under the bed. Yes,
Right.
it was under the bed the whole time. I'm not going to make you like look right at it and then have to roll. Like, but it's like, but that's a push roll, and that's a different animal in that game. I've actually ported push rolls over to just about everything. If if it's possible, I love the concept of like, talk me through. We can have a reroll, but
Yep.
it's a gamble now. It can go south, and that threat, that reward threat, is fun. My players love it. So it took him forever to figure out that I wasn't going to make him list how he was going to go through the page of every single book trying to find a loose note or something. And I think the Alexandrian kind of refers to this as like some sort of like bad game master trauma or something like that. And it's like not necessarily game master, but that is how a lot of those older games were
Hmm.
treated. And so I agree. It is kind of fun, but once again, sometimes it bogs down the fun. It's fun to make them roll motorcycle every time they go to the store because yes, you could technically have an accident anytime you get behind the wheel.
This
That
is
is a
true.
fact.
Yeah. No, that's true.
But I've
Mm.
driven thousands of times without incident. But find a dice scale where that that works. It's like it is possible, but at the same time, the game isn't about like just getting creamed every time you want to like get a slushy.
Yeah.
So, and I want them to find the thing, and I can adjust the difficulty. Like you have to get an extreme for this
Hmm.
because this thing is a special thing. It's not actually necessary, but if you roll real good, you get to find the special thing. Okay, I can do that. I can figure all that stuff out. Um, but I'm not going to just sit there while they go through a mantra and I'm waiting for them to hit the keyword of
Right,
I,
right,
I
right.
look inside the pillowcase. Um, the OSR is kind of weird in the sense that when they talk about like games, the old games, they mean D&D.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, because when they bring up like we didn't have skills back then until then, it's like Traveler came out in 1977, and it's actually the current edition's backwards compatible with that.
Yeah.
Like that,
Yeah.
that's an early skill based game. Lynn Willis created BRP in like what 1980, 81, somewhere in there,
Hmm.
which is for RuneQuest. It's like nope, they've been around a long time. But what they mean is D&D,
Right, right.
and and that's fine. I just do find it funny when a lot of people act like this never existed until third edition. Like, oh man, that's not a true statement at all.
Right, right,
Unless you add the caveat, this never existed in D&D until the third edition. Okay, that's a
right.
fact. Uh, but you can't say it's about old school games when you mean old school game.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's part of the problem uh in trying to define what the OSR is, and that's a whole other can of
Now, and
worms.
Ben Milton and all them, they'll laugh of like the OSR means like these nine things simultaneously, but none of them at the same time. That's just it is a quantum genre of gaming. But at the same time, do you ever read like the history of RPGs and stuff?
Uh, I haven't read any of the like books that have been
Okay,
published, but
it
I kind of have a
this is some deep nerd stuff. So
okay.
saying no is like totally okay. I understand. Um, so I love the history of gaming, like the Shannon Applekline Designers and Dragons
Right.
series, John Peterson stuff. Slaying the Dragon is amazing. Like this is what I put in my audiobook when I'm like going for a walk or going to the gym or doing dishes or
Hmm.
whatnot. Everybody else
Okay.
is jamming out to tunes, and I'm like listening to like the history of Troll Lord games or something like this. So
Nice.
um, when they start kind of going into uh, where the OSR originated. It came out of third edition because prior to that, D&D, AD&D, all of that, it was a very survival based. It was very pulpy. This was way more Conan than it was Lord of the Rings. Really, it wasn't about epic fantasy. This is about like you're fighting for your life sort of thing. And I think Professor Dungeon Master he did a video years ago that finally articulated what had been in the back of my head the whole time. And
Hmm.
he actually just simply looked at the images from the monster manuals. That was
Hmm.
his entire stance. It was like, oh God, that was it. I've been trying to put my finger on it. Like, so if you look at like first edition or OD&D stuff, the monster is often like standing above a dead hero, or like the guy at the piercer, like you see a silhouette of a guy impaled
Right.
on a piercer, like the monster, its claws, and it's sitting above a fallen hero. The rot grubs is a guy looking at his arm in absolute horror as these things are digging into his. These things are terrifying, man. Versus once you start getting to third edition and later, it's like check out this monster and you get to kick its ass, and it's
It's
like
very
it is like,
true.
and the thing is like when he was showing the pictures, like oh my god, that was it. Like
Mm,
it suddenly became much more about, we are the epic heroes versus,
right.
we're going to try to survive this dungeon like Conan or something. And that was the thought of mentality. It has nothing to do with the actual mechanics. It is what the game is trying to emulate. So when D&D made that switch to third edition, it left a lot of people feeling left behind, and I was among them, where it's like, this this isn't my game anymore. Like, it
Hmm.
has many of the same terms,
Right.
but like the characters are like way too powerful, and like
Hmm.
I feel like as a game master I have almost pretty much relinquished my power to them. And it just feels wrong. And what it was
Mm,
is they were coming at it from this completely different philosophy. So, and I forget which publisher it was that they released some stuff in the third edition OGL talking about, like, you know, old school feel, new school
oh,
rules.
necromancers, necromancer
Um,
games.
that is actually the start of the OGL, or of the OSR. That
Right.
right there, because
Hmm.
Necromancer identified, this is what it is, guys. It's not what you think it is. Not these new rules kind of help propel it going this way, but you are wanting a game that goes this way, even though they're called the same. Even though Wizard still gets Fireball once they hit fifth level because it's their little spell called Fireball, blah blah blah. But the people realized it wasn't the same. So that's kind of where the OSR came from, as you had a bunch of people that were playing a game that their game actually switched genres on them,
Hmm.
and it kind of acted like it didn't, and they felt weirdly left behind. And like I said, I was among them. Like, it was like, this isn't my D&D anymore. And it's like, but a rule changes happen, but genre changes, very
Mm.
very different animal. So so that's really the moment OSR began.
That's a
Is people that kind of felt homeless, like, it's like the Stepford Wives, like, you look like my D&D, but you're not my D&D.
No, that's a really interesting perspective. I'd never really considered that before. Um, I think that's probably why, because like third edition is really where I got heavy into D&D, and D, and it, you know, so when I try to play those older games, it really throws me because I'm like, I want the heroics, and you can't really do that with the older editions. I always felt like I'm like constantly like, oh, I don't want to get into a fight, but I'm a fighter. And it's like, well, you got to really like build the fight like, to your advantage. And I'm like, no, dude, when I'm like a hero, I just go and kick the dude's ass. I don't need to be like, okay, I'm gonna like set a booby trap and I'm gonna hide over here and then we're gonna jump out of the bushes and I'm just like, dude, this is so much work. I'm like, I have a character sheet, it has abilities on it. I use those abilities, I kick the monster's ass.
No, and like, so it basically, we went from sword and sorcery to epic fantasy. Like, that's quite literally all it was. And but also there was the design decision, and I've heard different reasons for it. Like, some of it was like, third edition was made by people that did Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering is a game. It's all about making your deck built. It's about absolute balance, balance above all. Balance is godliness, right? And well, old AD&D, it's like, yeah, your fighter needs like 2,000 experience points to get to like second level. Your mage needs seven. And it's like balance was kind of like, and that one I always talk about. There was the long term game versus the short. Like, short term game, fighter's where it's at. Once you start getting around like seventh, eighth level, your cleric is actually a total badass because they've got the armor, they get a lot of hit points, and they got some really great offensive spells, right? Then you hit like 16th level and say, oh, and by the way, your wizard just became a god. And like, it's like, what? It's like, yeah, one wizard could totally wipe all you guys out, no problem. Like, one. And yeah, versus kind of the new mind says, like, a 16th level character is just as powerful as another 16th level character. That used to is like, yeah, there's like a 17th level wizard over there. It's like, oh shit. Like, we could throw an army against this guy and nothing would happen, because, like,
Right.
it's like, when do you want to be the badass? Do you want to be the badass now? but that's
Right.
much later. And there was all of these kind of aspects to it. Well, third edition became the approach. They were all pretty even, and people became really overly obsessed with like this perfect balance structure, which really isn't possible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's yeah, yes, there's a thing called balance, but this precision balance versus like good enough is that's what it is.
Right.
But it's because of that. So you also had like your old AD&D players who were like, "What the hell? This isn't how my game works." So yeah, there was a lot of stuff, but that was the moment the OSR really began. And yes, there is a lot of kind of rose-colored, glasses and stuff like that when you're dealing with a lot of the grognards. But you have a lot of new players that come in and they prefer that style of game. But it's not about this is what gaming was back in the day and it was better. It's more
Right.
about sword and sorcery versus epic fantasy. Are we doing Mistborn or are we doing The Hobbit?
Right.
Or actually, we're doing Hobbit or Lord of the Rings. Hobbit is actually a sword and sorcery story. Lord of the Rings is epic fantasy.
Hmm.
Because one of them is about we're going to gag the dragon, we're going to get its gold. What's your motivation? Money. And then like Lord
It's
of the Rings,
true.
like we're going to save the world from the Dark Lord, and we're bigger, we're great big heroes. Versus like I'm a burglar, like or like I loved Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser growing up, man. It was actually the old AD&D Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser stuff. And so when you read a lot of the sword and sorcery stuff, those are personal goals like revenge, love, hate, things that you and I have felt. Epic fantasy is about like I am going to save the world from the Dark Lord who might plunge us in 1,000 years of darkness. I literally have nothing in my life that I can actually associate
This is
with
facts.
that. But I
Yeah.
understand. I want to get this guy because this guy screwed me over. So it's usually like very personal stakes. It's very like one or two people like against the world. Usually people who are way more powerful than them. It's like sword and sorcery heroes very rarely have magic, but bad guys very often have magic, and it's mysterious and horrible. Versus epic heroes are like badasses with magic. They're the toughest kid on the block.
Right.
So that's kind of the difference in the genres. Even though once again, yeah, there's a lot of gray zone in the middle, but that's really the core difference. And D&D did that, and that's where the OSR came from. Is we're going back to sword and sorcery.
Interesting. So
90-minute explanation of something that you
no, no,
mentioned.
no, that's awesome. I love your videos. I watched your Traveler stuff to learn how to play Traveler, and I thought that was super helpful. And that's why I have a shitload of Traveler books now behind
And
me.
when I went to Philadelphia Gaming Expo, I like brought the Traveler core rule book with me. And like one of the first things I did is I was like, it's kind of a quiet moment. I looked over at Baron DeRop from Dungeon Masterpiece
Nice.
and Deficient Master was like, "You guys ever made characters for Traveler?" They're like, no, it's like I just whipped out two character sheets that I printed out for this specific reason. Of like, if I can
Nice.
get you to make a character, you will understand what makes this game so different. And then I went to like a presentation that Brand Drop was doing over geopolitics in fantasy, and he was talking about trade routes and stuff. And we are kind of like, well, I got back to like this, the kind of our hangout spot. I was like, so, Baron, you like geopolitics and trade routes and stuff like this? Oh, yeah, it's sort of my thing. He's like, yeah, have I ever told you a little game of Traveler? He's like, what? And then I pulled out the trade section, and he was like, "Oh my god!" And he was like, just going through it, like, "Oh my god!" I didn't know there was a game that had this level of because that's like literally what the guy does for a living, right? He's an
Oh,
expert
really?
at this. Yeah.
Okay.
So and the fact that Traveler just kind of casually throws in like this like elaborate thing where it's like, yeah, this is where you get your planet codes, and it kind of says like the how you'll do your difference in prices if you want to buy sell if it's an industrialized versus agricultural world, blah blah blah. And oh yeah, he just sat there, just was reading that book, like, oh my god, like it's like that. By the way, that's how you sell somebody in a game is you find out what it is they really dig. Like,
Nice.
like, here you go, just because I want to like expand the word of that game because it's like, yeah, I think with sci-fi people are more loyal to IPs.
Hmm.
Like
Interesting.
I want to play Star Wars. I want to play Battlestar Galactica. I want to play Star Trek. Like people buy the game just based off that IP. But then when you start throwing out kind of like a general like system that doesn't have like a movie or a book franchise on it, it's like suddenly a harder sell because they don't automatically know what it is. So versus fantasy, we all know what fantasy is. For
Yeah.
some reason with sci-fi, it is very, very genre, uh, or like very IP specific. Versus fantasy, it's like, oh yeah, like fantasy, like Willow, or, Conan, or I watched the Lord of the Rings movies. Like, yeah, but those are also like different genres of fantasy. Yeah, it's all fantasy. It's like,
It it is weird. I think you make a really good point there because I mean, like you said, sometimes I say to myself, like, how come sci-fi doesn't have as strong as following in RPGs as like D&D as the base. And I don't know because D&D you can't do like Lord of the Rings with D&D. Like
yes,
you can, but it isn't going to feel like Lord of the
yeah,
Rings, right? And so and I always said, okay, well, like the kind of fantasy or the kind of sci-fi that, or well, I guess it's more like space opera, but like Star Wars is very different feel from like Alien, which is a very different feel from like Star Trek, which is a very different feel from like, I don't know, uh like maybe
yeah,
Babylon 5 or
yeah.
whatever, right? So what do you think that is? Why do you think that like D&D is captures this, oh, you want to play fantasy, but like sci-fi seems to struggle with that.
Well, it's a couple reasons. One is D&D also did a fantastic job of redefining a lot of the fantasy tropes that we believe. And what they did is like why do we see a million elves that all look like Tolkien elves? Well,
Mm,
one, that Tolkien, but two, D&D. So a lot of those D&D isms ended up bleeding into that popular culture. So a lot of stuff we look at through a D&D eye. That's why if you look at a lot of old fantasy, man, that stuff got weird, man. Like, it just got like so way back in the day. It's funny, as Blackmore used to be like this. It was like post-apocalyptic, like sword and laser sort of thing, right? Like the old
right.
masters of the universe are like flying around on hovercrafts, except for some reason he's wearing like a fur loincloth and has a sword. You're like, what the hell? Like, growing up watching Thundar the Barbarian, which is like it's post-apocalyptic, and they're battling it out on the crumbling remains of Mount Rushmore or something like that. Like that was a huge genre, like Wizards from 1977. Where it's like elves and magic users and Nazis, and just that's just what fantasy was. It was just like fantastical. And then we started having these kind of like rules, these genre rules. And fantasy somehow fell into
Mm,
kind of like D&D-ish. And a lot of people are like, it's because it's Tolkien. I'd say, yes, but then a lot of people picked up D&D, and those kind of intrinsic genre rules kind of became in our heads and in our fiction as our authors who also play D&D, and like they've kind of got that, and it kind of became how we did things. Um, it's real weird if you start reading a lot of like older fantasy, especially like the weird fiction from like the
okay.
30s. Man, it's like the Wild West. I mean, it's like they'll sometimes use terms that you didn't realize you had associated with D&D. Like
Hmm.
when I was reading Dennis Whitley's Devil Rides Out, he talked about elementals, the elementals that live in the ether,
Mm.
stuff like that. I'm like, elementals, like fire, water, sort of thing. And he's like, no, like elemental emotions. Like,
Whoa.
what? And I guess that works, but for some reason in my head, elemental meant this, and it means nothing else. But like back when elemental could really mean like anything,
Wow. It's like
nobody thought about it.
I summoned an anger elemental
Yeah,
or a
and
sad elemental.
and actually, I used that exact thing, and when I did my novel Ashes of Onyx, is like I like let's go ahead and use this, and a lot of my early beta readers would they'd voice like, well, this isn't right, like it's not right for D&D, but before D&D that didn't matter, and after D&D it shouldn't matter. But for some reason, we all
Mm.
have is kind of in our head. Sci-fi, especially when you get to like movies and stuff, like like you get to see the ships, you get to see the lightsabers, and you get to see what a Klingon is and their cool battle and all sorts of stuff, right? So we get really sold on the world of whatever property it is. Like we get really into this stuff. So when we think about a sci-fi game, we're often thinking, I want it to be like Star Trek. I want it to be like Star
Right.
Wars. I want to be a Jedi, or I want to be a smuggler, or whatever else. I want it to be like the Expanse, where like it's just weirdly homegrown stuff as we're trying to like chase down the evil corporation, or fight against the Belchers or whatnot. So with those, we start really getting deep into those things, because in fantasy, really generally come on, a sword is a sword, a castle is a castle, a horse is a horse. But in sci-fi, it's a spaceship. Whoa, are we talking about Battlestar Galactica? Are we talking about the Enterprise? We're talking about Star Destroyer? I mean, those mean different things.
Hmm.
Fantasy, it's a castle.
Yeah.
We all know what a castle is.
Right.
Uh, and that's also why a lot of the what we call fantasy is also very European based fantasy. And
Right.
if you
Right.
actually really
Right.
want to get to the core of the genre, it actually goes back to like King Arthur. If you really want to like go down that rabbit hole. So I think
Right.
that's what it is. Is when people say D&D, it's all fantasy. It's usually European based. It usually hits a lot of these notes. Yeah, we got a little bit of wiggle room. D&D also says we can do all fantasy. So we're okay. Yeah, we can make it work. And that's what it is. Versus Star Trek. Man, when you read that rules, it better be exactly like Star Trek. I
Yeah.
better be able to do absolutely everything that they did on whichever series of Star Trek is my
Right. Right.
favorite. So it's very IP based for sci-fi.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if you've ever read Tad Williams' The Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, I think it's called, trilogy, but there's elves there, and the kind of names that he uses are they come off very like Japanese or like Asian in sound. I mean, they're like, I don't know, it feels like super unpronounceable. I don't know how many times I've read books where I'm like, I don't even understand how you're supposed to say these things. But I did find it a little bit,
Author's secret, they don't know either.
but it is a little jarring. It was like, wait a minute. Like, I don't think elves are supposed to be like this, but he's saying they are, so I guess they are.
Yeah.
It was cool. Um, but just to like segue a little bit into talking about your I mean, we were kind of talking about off air how you're probably more known as the game, a role-playing dude more than maybe an author, which I felt was like a shame because like I feel like if I wanted to be an author, I'd want to be known as, an author first. So can you talk a little bit about the about
Yeah.
the struggles of being an author and the like sort of like your creative process and you know
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually really started writing seriously uh, after I'd graduated college. I moved away from like my college town, and all of a sudden you got a lot more time on your hands because like you don't have your friends just right there all the time. And I ended up joining like an online writing workshop, and I was going to write the next great fantasy novel. It was crap, but I spent years writing this, and that's how I learned how to write. And so I would do I had a lot of sword and sorcery thief adventures, which
nice.
a lot of those became some of my first sales to like small magazines and whatnot. And that's where my Black Raven series came from. And those are actually pretty much done the original pulp style. Like they were written out of order, they were
Okay.
published out of order. There isn't an actual order. Like there is kind of like broad stroke, like at this adventure we meet this guy, and this adventure we know this guy already, but it's kind of like you're supposed to be able to like walk in at any
Okay.
time, kind of like how the old Conan pulps were of
Right,
like,
right.
or the original Fafhrd Grey Mousers. Like Lee were kind of like organized them later, but when he was writing them, it's like, whatever. So yeah, I would do those, and I ended up getting enough of those that we put them together in some series, and then I ended up writing my Valdekin series, which is like modern day demon hunters. And I
Okay.
started with my novel Dameron, which is like a standalone, and then like there's three more after that. Each of them follows a different kind of a sentient demon killing weapon and this kind of
Neat.
order of demon hunter knights in the present day. And then Ashes of Onyx, which that was like my love letter that I did to a lot of the books that inspired me. But it's a
Neat.
modern day. She's a sorceress who has lost her magic. She's a drug addict.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
absolute, at rock bottom is where you get to meet her. And then she basically is given the job, the offer she can't refuse. That it's like,
Okay.
we're going to give you your magic back, and your payment's going to be what you're going to do with that magic. And then it leads to, different realms of existence and Carcosa and the King in Yellow
Oh,
and
wow.
all this
Okay.
sorts of stuff. But like, but say, well, yeah, it's a set from Neuromancer. It's one of the most
I,
influential books
I was just
I've
gonna
ever read.
I was just gonna say, I was like, that
So,
sounds like Neuromancer.
yeah, that's it. That's where I got it. Is of like that's what I want to do. I want to have Case, who is a horrible, like I can't do the thing that I am really good at. Somebody's like, hey, I can give that back to you, but the cost is the
Hmm.
job you're going to do, the impossible job, is your
Right.
payment. Um, but yeah, so it's got a lot of like Clive Barker, like Magica, and
Nice.
a lot of stuff. Obviously, Chambers and Beers with the King in Yellow, and
Right,
a
right,
lot of the stuff that I found really influential. So it's kind of like my love letter to William Gibson and Clive Barker, and hair of Stephen King in there, but
right.
which the Dark Tower also falls into pretty much this same sort of story of like the different worlds and all this. So um, I enjoy it. The problem is writing a book at breakneck speed. The fastest I've ever done it is like a year.
Okay.
And I think Dameron took me like 24 months. Ashes of Onyx took me like 15. And then you've got to like do all this, you get the publisher. And, like,
Right.
so like Ashes, because my old publisher had gone under. So now looking for a new agent, gets me a new publisher. That's a year and a half to 2 year process. You're already done with the book. And then
Right,
you're doing
right.
all the editing. And then it comes out, you know, 2 years after you finish the book. You've kind of moved on. And then you get to find out if it's any good.
Mm.
So then I released that one like right when COVID dropped. So when I started doing my channel, I was coming at it as like I'm an author. I was doing pretty well, and I was told I should make a YouTube channel to like kind of boost my name. So I made my channel, and I was like decided it was to be about role playing games because I could talk about that a lot, and as a way to hopefully introduce people to me, they might get interested in my books. Win-win. Problem is, I'm terrible at self promotion, man. I'm just freaking awful at it. So I almost never mention like, oh yeah, by the way, I've been going to conventions for years and speaking about how to write fight scenes and all this stuff. Like it's I never really brought it up. We just talked about the role playing games, and then I ended up becoming more popular for my YouTube and the role playing game stuff than I was as an author. So yeah, I went from an author that's also a YouTuber to a YouTuber that's got some books on the side. And I kind of look at it like that, like kind of that Jack Sparrow, you've at least heard of me, sort of thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
And because a lot of people are like, so you're not writing as much anymore? Like, no, because the YouTube channel really does take, it does fill a lot of that emotional or that creative need.
Hmm.
Yeah, because like part of why you write and like all of a sudden you're like become like a weird hermit is you're busy creating. You're kind of hiding in your own
Right,
little
right,
world.
right.
Uh, well, when you're making YouTube videos and you are a one man show, like I am, it's the same thing. Like I have to like come up with my topic, come up with this thing. I'll do little skits, sort of stuff like that. So that's really hitting a lot of my creative niche as well as like just sometimes like I just do weird stuff in videos, and it's just like let's see if this works. And yeah, just because that is what I'll use as my outlet. So I don't mind
Okay.
that
Nice.
that people think of me as like the RPG YouTuber first. Like I really don't. I mean, I'd love them to like read all my stuff and enjoy it and all that. That makes me really happy because a lot of that is very personal, and all of those have an incredible amount of time and all of that that's involved. But at the same time, you know, I'm doing this. I enjoy this, so it's not
Right.
like it doesn't lessen my enjoyment as a YouTuber in any way whatsoever. If nothing else, it has opened a lot more doors for me writing wise. So yeah, it's one thing I can't talk about, but hey, keep your eye on Netflix at some point, and maybe you'll see my name. So it's part of like it's opened a lot of doors. So
Nice.
I'm I'm fine. Uh,
That's
but
awesome.
it but it is like I don't know, like like what I was bringing up, like the difference between like sword and sorcery versus epic. That's because I've been doing genre stuff and rank stuff for years. Like that's where that whole opinion was based
Right,
on,
right.
was is trying to navigate the world of genres in a literary form, which is the most ridiculous minefield ever because there are 10 million genres and no one, I don't care who you are, knows the rules to genres.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
it's it's maddening. But when you have your book, you have to name which specific genre it is. And it's like, but it's not this specific genre. It's kind of like
Right,
these
right.
four. It's like, nope. What genre is it? Like when Ashes of Onyx, I was immediately approached by Audible Studios, like before I was even done writing it, because I said on like my blog that I was working on this other project that didn't have anything to do with my Valdigan series, and I had worked with Audible Studios before. Two of my audiobooks were Audio Award finalists for Best Paranormal of the Year,
Oh,
so
wow,
they were
nice.
aware of me. And I had done my fourth Valdigan book, Redemptor, as an Audible original, so I was, I knew the producers and the people there. So they reached out to me and they're like, "Oh, send it to us first." I'm like, "Okay, this will be easy." And then when I was at World Fantasy Con, I met with their person, and the answer I was given is, "We don't know what genre this is," because I was, like, so when you're trying to get an agent editor, every freaking one of them says like, "I want something genre bending. I want something I've never seen before," and then they'll
Right.
come back to you like, "I don't know what genre to put this in because
You bent
we
it
have
too hard, man.
yeah." And well, because way back in the day, when you went to a bookstore, which like right there, that's a dated sense. There was like you know sci-fi fantasy. There was a section,
Yep.
and then there was horror,
Yep.
so its own section. But it was kind of approached. The difference between the three genres was like if there's a werewolf attacking a small settlement and it's in a European village, it's fantasy. If it's on Mars, it's sci-fi, and if it's down the street, it's in horror. But it could be the
Mm.
exact same story. And like, but that was like, that was literally it. Those are the three genres, and that's also why a lot of Barker and King stuff that was not horror at all was always thrown in
Yeah.
horror, because fantasy was in some distant past and sci-fi was in the future, and nobody
Mm.
knew what to do with the middle. So then you had like Amazon, and that's where all of a sudden you start getting like young adult sword and sorcery taking place at a boarding school, and all of a sudden that's a genre. And there's like
Right.
all of a sudden there's a million very specific genres, which is really great if you're a reader and I want to find something that reads just like this other thing that I enjoy.
Right.
That's
Right.
that's great. But if you're an author, it's like, well, crap. They actually got so narrow by those definitions as it becomes like really difficult to navigate. So you spend a lot of time thinking about like genre rules and whatnot. And that's before we get to romance, because romance, by the way, is an entirely separate parallel universe with all the exact same genres and subgenres, but with love. And then you get to young adult, which is a separate parallel universe.
Right.
So
Wow.
like you'll try to find an agent. It's like, I really want like this urban fantasies thing like that. Then you're actually looking deep. It's like, oh, you're horror, you're romance. Damn, I thought I found the perfect agent. But
So
like they hit all the same keywords, but then they had the romance, romance dimension. Like, ah, dang. If I wish you were in the regular genre dimension, you'd be a great agent.
So like you need to find somebody, an agent that's in that genre. Is that what you're saying? Like when you want to sell your books? Like what if you came up with like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to be working on a crime fiction thriller, kind of thing.
A lot of times, once you get them on the hook and you have an agent signed, they can handle it. If there are a lot of them that will be with an agency, so a lot of them will be like, "Hey, I'm really good at speculative fiction. I'm I really don't know any of the different public like editors in chiefs and whatnot in crime fiction, so they might pass it to somebody else that's with the same agency because the
Okay.
publishing industry is actually really small. Like kind of
Okay.
like the RPG industry. Man, once you start digging, it's like really, really small, and everybody knows each other. So
Interesting.
basically, once you get it's a lot easier. Once you've sold something, providing it's sold well, it's a lot easier to like do that. But there is also the idea of like people are very weird in the fact that they want this author does this genre. So all of a sudden, that's when you start having like, well, the author goes by a pseudonym to do that because I don't think the average human being could handle that. Well, they enjoy five different genres. That
Right.
this author, who probably understands a lot of written word stuff better than they do, might also enjoy five different,
Yep.
genres. And music does this, does the same thing. It's like, this is what you do. Here's your little box, and you're not allowed to leave it. And once again, if you actually start like kind of digging, that is a really new phenomenon of we become very label based on like this is your box, this is where you go, you only belong here, and that is actually something that really kind of came about really big in the 20th century, where like Lovecraft, man, he's got sci-fi stories where a guy's running around Venus and gets trapped in some alien maze because like he's trying to do stuff. And he's got a laser pistol, but they haven't invented lasers yet. So he's like, it's a flame beam, like because like at the time it was just called weird fiction. Like that was
Right.
it. All horror, sci-fi, fantasy was just called weird fiction. It was one genre, and that's why you had post-apocalyptic, whatever, and it was all in the same room together, and nobody really cared. But it was only once you started really categorizing it, once again, great from a consumer standpoint, terrible from a creative standpoint.
Right.
So I don't even know how we got on this topic, but I can
No,
say,
no, but that's fascinating because I mean, oftentimes, when you because I listen to Meet the Thriller podcast. I like thrillers. That tends to be the stuff that I read most often. Um, and like you hear a lot of the kind of like how do you write? What's your are you a pantser or are you a plotter? Like how do you write? What do you write on? All that kind of stuff. And this is the kind of stuff that's like a little, I feel like it's important and you don't really hear about it that often, right? Like I wouldn't have considered, I mean, it makes sense, but I wouldn't have considered that the publishing industry was so small in that, so no, that's really fascinating.
well, it's also genres become defined. Subgenres become defined by like this most popular thing. Urban fantasy, at least when Dameron came out, urban fantasy meant Dresden Files, or
Right.
books that were meant to emulate the Dresden Files, which was also just a copy of Anita Blake. And then Anita Blake became
Mm,
like the romance parallel universe.
interesting.
Yeah, like but uh, so a lot of people would compare my Dameron to the Dresden Files. I hadn't read the Dresden Files, but
Really?
that's like a first person noir detective story where they're so snarky. I was during the age where everybody just had to be like the most snarky asshole in the world. That's what everybody loved. It was like people who in real life would be insufferable and you'd punch them. And that's not what my book is at all. And
Right.
they're like, well, it's like the Dresden Files, but and it's like it's a weird way of saying you've only ever read the Dresden Files as far as a modern day fantasy because like it'd be like if like the only movie somebody ever saw in their entire life was Freaky Friday, and then they were trying to describe like I don't know like whatever like war movie like Saving Private Ryan. It's like well it's like Freaky Friday, but what are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Oh
So,
man.
but that's kind of how people Like a lot of times when you say sorcery, people go, "Oh, like Conan."
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, technically the first Conan, it's a little bit more epic, but then they all became sort of sorcery. But so it's a lot of like, it's either biggest darling, it's most famous member of that genre, or uh, kind of the first. It's usually
Okay.
not the first, but it's usually like the most famous is kind of like they all have to be
Right.
like that. And then we're like, well, it's technically a contemporary fantasy like the Dresden Files, but it's not wisecracking detective first person thing. So we have to come up with a new uh, genre
Right.
name
Right.
for it.
Right.
Enter supernatural fiction. Like that's literally what that means. Like so because what I said, like I was up for 2 Audio Awards for best supernatural. What's the difference in supernatural and urban fantasy? Not Dresden.
Mm,
That is that's the answer. Like,
that's interesting.
other than that, the exact same thing.
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. I feel like we've covered skill-based systems. I hope everybody
We
has
got all over the place.
you know, enjoyed that, but also what is the OSR genre? Um, but I kind of wanted I had listener questions. I feel bad that I couldn't get to them.
I'll throw one
Um,
or two out, man. We can make
yeah,
this
okay, cool.
choose. Make it like Thunderdome, man. Like how many
Thunderdome.
questions you have? Only like one person gets to say it was asked.
All right.
Maybe two.
Let's go here. So I went to the Modern Mythos Discord, and I also went to the Mongoose Discord, and I went to my own Discord because I got a Discord now. It's a new thing. Okay. Um, okay, so more chill from Modern Mythos asks the question, and this one got a whole bunch of likes, so I feel like this is the one that I'm gonna ask. Um, what makes you decide to stop reading a scenario and decide not to run it?
Okay. Um. So kind of choosing if I want to write a scenario or not. It's kind of like the initial like read the back description. Like, does this interest me enough? Like some of the pictures, and you're like, ooh, this looks. Um. If I realize that I can't work this in to whatever our like campaign is, because usually I'm working them into a campaign, or if I'm like, I don't actually see my players enjoying this, or I don't enjoy this. Give an example, and people are going to get mad because I named one that like I totally like put down was Beyond the Mountains Madness.
Oh, really?
So a few years ago, I was like, I want to run a long form campaign. I haven't run a long
Mm-hmm.
form campaign in a while, so I picked up several. One of them was the Mountains of Madness,
Mm-hmm.
and like I'm on like chapter 7, and like they're in Australia and they're making pemmican or something, and like
Mm-hmm.
nothing interesting has happened in this campaign. I'm bored reading it. I'm like, okay, they're gonna be bored to tears playing this, and they're like, well, you can tighten it up. So he's like, you know what? I'm so bored. I don't even want to put that much effort into it.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are better campaigns that I don't
Right.
have to put this much work into to make them feel like they should be playable. At the beginning, so I'm like no, and I put it aside, and I picked up another, and I picked up another, and eventually I settled on Secrets of the Ancients. But I'd actually originally started looking through Call of Cthulhu campaigns,
Okay.
and it was like the fact that we ended with Traveler is more of a Hail Mary at the end of like, oh my God, nothing is fitting
Really?
what my mood is or what this is. Well, like another good example, a lot of people love Time to Harvest. It's very
Oh,
popular.
honestly,
Uh,
I have a bone to pick with that one, man.
And so where I stopped is I don't know if I had finished reading the second scenario. I think I had, but I realized at no point have we had a call to action. Where basically an NPC looks at the PCs and is like, you need to do this. It's more like stuff is happening and the PCs, are going to naturally look into it and all this stuff happens. And like the other one, it's like, it's at the school, it's over the course of the semester. Now, but the concept of like your students, and instead of declaring your profession, you declare your major and all this.
Right.
Like, oh my God, I love that. That is like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, put that in my veins. But I'm thinking this, I'm like, okay, so there are two scenarios in, and we haven't had a call to action. And I understood that it comes in the third, but I'm like, so I understand my players, and they actually find that frustrating. And like the first one, okay, we can handle that because this ends up being more survival horror. The
Hmm.
action comes to them.
Right.
Okay, I have a 60% chance they'll figure out what they're supposed to do if the
Yeah.
monster charges them. But the second one, where it's kind of like over the course of a semester and weird stuff is happening, I'm imagining my players' faces and what I know frustrates them. And I know what frustrates me when they're not like reacting to stuff because uh, yeah, they're unsure what to do. I'm like, this will not fit with us. This will absolutely
Right.
not fit with my table. So put it down, and I moved on because I I know my players, and I know their strengths, I know their weaknesses, I know their interests, and they like to at least have somebody look them in the freaking eye. Okay, one of the players, two of my players, but yeah, look at the eyes like, do this, like okay, and they'll do it, and they'll be able to get
Right.
creative. But until then, they're kind of like, okay, so we're just getting all the backstory information until somebody tells us what we're supposed to do, and that's just
Right.
how they approach it, which is their preference. So I'm not gonna run that if I don't see this going well. Like just
Right.
nope, and move on. So there's that. Sometimes like you get you're reading it and like I don't know who these people are. I don't know what the plot is. Some of them are written so weird that you're like, I'm reading this and I have no idea what I'm reading anymore. I don't know what the story is. Like I think it was Cold Fire Within. I think you're on like page 50 or something before like the player characters are even there, which is like, granted, I'm reading all this made up history, but what the hell do my players do?
Right.
And I understand that I need to have some backstory for some context and stuff like that. I get that. But whenever I pick up a scenario and I think I'm going to run this, I do need to see what, like, what's the situation? What are the player characters doing? Like, what are their risks? Like, I don't need to learn about 10,000 years ago and the blah, blah, blah. So it's like, so some of them I'll put down mostly because I personally get bored. And I'm like,
Mm.
okay, I don't know what any of this is. I haven't gotten to any adventure. I don't have a hook. I have nothing, and I've got a stack of other stuff over there I could be reading instead. Why don't I go to one of those? And so
Right.
that kicks in. So one day I might run a Cold Fire Within. I don't know, but because it actually had the backstory stuff was so long and so detailed, it's so by the time I even got to like where chapter one begins, I had already forgotten half of it because I had no context to plug a lot of it into.
Right.
So,
That's no, that's really interesting. Also, I find it's interesting just because I also felt with Beyond the Mountains of Madness, um, the same sort of like um this doesn't feel like there's a lot of action going on here. And there's certain things where I'm like, ooh, that's really interesting. And like, no, but that's like kind of like a red herring thing. That's not super important. And I was like, what the hell, man? Um, and Time to Harvest. Sorry, go ahead.
no, there's a lot of stuff where it's like, oh, because the game master knows what's going on, they know that's
Right.
interesting. But
Right.
from a player's point of view, it's like, okay, she's got a blue hat. I don't care.
Yeah.
And I'll forget that you said that in 20 seconds because I had no reason to give a damn. But it's like, but in 3 chapters, that's going to be important. Like, no, I don't care. So, so you do have to also remember how exciting is this from the point of view of someone who doesn't know all the little like, oh, this is going to be
Right.
good. Like,
Right.
so
Like Time to Harvest was the same thing. I read that and I was super excited. Like I was like exactly like you. I was like, this is so like for the longest time I've wanted to run like a Miskatonic University, your students, you're
oh yeah,
going out and doing stuff. I don't know why. I mean, this I feel like this is the only one. I mean, maybe there's more. I don't know.
campaign
But
wise, I think it's the only one. I think there's like scenarios where you could be college students, but
yeah.
but the idea of like, what's your major? It's got like all this stuff, and I was like, oh, this is so
Yeah.
great. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I love
no.
like. we'd be using the map of Arkham, and we'd be like all the stuff you imagine one day you'll use. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna bust out that campus map. I'm gonna bust out this. We're gonna learn the names of a lot of the professor NPCs and like do the college life. And like,
Yeah,
so oh, I was that part thrilled me.
definitely. I sometimes I wonder if like things like that are better for like if you want to do a homebrew type of situation where you take those chunks out and use them as like fodder for your own campaign, because that was kind of what I had in my mind too. I was like, oh, I got the Arkham book. I'm like, it's a beautiful brand new book and we got the map and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, this will be perfect. And then I actually started running it and we didn't even finish the first scenario. I was like, guys, I'm like, I can't do this. I'm like, this is not, no, I can't. I'm like, we gotta shift gears and do something else. I'm really sorry. I don't like it's been a really, really long time since I've ever done this, but I'm like, nah, we can't. And that's why I was so scared shitless to run Mask of Hotep, because I was like, this one of the things, so you've
It's a
talked about how,
beast. It's
yeah, and you've talked, I heard you say that you were intimidated to run
oh
Mask.
yeah.
And so I was like, if Seth Skorkowsky is afraid to run this, what chance do I have? Until finally I said, God damn it, I'm making this happen. I have to do this before I die. I've run this campaign, or at least I gave it the best shot that I had.
I've got that in Orient Express, that the seventh edition versions of each. I at some point I'll do it. But I also have a weird thing where like yeah, say it's always November's, by the way. But like so after a certain amount of time, I get this weird wandering eye. So when I look
Mm,
at a campaign where I know I'm about to make like probably a 2 year commitment, it's like, oh God, oh, do I think I'm still going to be in love with this in 2 years, or am I going to
mm,
have a year where I'm going through the motions? And uh, so that actually is a legit consideration that I have
hmm
of like, because like I know I'm excited right now, but realistically, if I think about it, do I think I'll still be excited 1 year from now? And I'm only halfway in. And
right.
sometimes I'm like, yeah, I got this. But other times, my players, uh, God bless them, dealt with the fact that for some reason, around every November, it's like I'd start getting, was like, guys, I know you're really happy with this game, but what if we just threw it away and did something else? And like, so, yeah, so it's like also this underlying fear because I've done it many
Mm,
times. So it's like,
yeah,
what if I start mastering a laptop and then like the second half of it, I'm actually just really counting down because I'm looking forward to the next thing, and that's what's got me excited. And
right.
like, and like now looking at it like this obligation. That's not fair for my players. It sucks
Yep.
for me. It's like, but so I basically have to find something that I think might be ADHD proof. Um, One of the reasons I chose Secrets of the Ancients for Traveler is it was longer than I wanted to do. It was a lot longer. I was wanting like 6 adventures sort of thing. It's 10. But every adventure is a completely different like genre of like,
Right.
oh, oh, this isn't just like we're at a new location. It's like
Right.
this is a spy thriller. This is a freaking horror. This is like we're breaking out of a prison. This is a 1950s disaster movie. I mean, it's like
Nice.
each one of them was so distinct that I was like, this will keep my interest because it's not going to have the oh, now we're doing the same old thing sort of thing. And like, yeah, okay, there's a few differences, but it's still
Right.
the same thing where you're like you kind of looking back on it. It's like, well, like when we were doing, Orient Express from France. No, we in Poland at the time. Where were we? But we knew we were doing the campaign versus the Secrets of the Ancients. Like I know exactly where we were because every single one was so radically different
Right.
that it felt fresh. So, and that's ultimately what got me to look at it and go, that this is the one I'm going to run because I know for a fact that I'm not going to lose interest. Okay, I don't know for a fact. I'm mostly sure. I'm not. I get surprised myself that I'm not going to have that weird point where you kind of you're kind of like hit groove, And once you hit a
Right.
groove, that's when that wandering eye kicks in. It's like, ah, cool, I got this under control. What else is out there?
Yeah,
And then I
yeah,
find that a
yeah.
shiny thing, and I was like, oh, crap. But I'm busy running this. So it's a balancing act I have to do. I knew that one wouldn't have that. And I was right. We ran it for 2 years, and it was
Nice.
amazing. It was absolutely amazing. But
Oh,
I went through a lot of other campaigns first. Some of them I didn't like. Uh, for them, others just my group. But I'd put them down once I saw the potential problem. It's gone. Next.
yeah, I'm gonna have to get that one now. I'm gonna be making an order to Mongoose.
Did
Um,
you see my giant ridiculous 10 part review
I
of this one?
I haven't watched
It's
it
oh
because
my god, it's the
I
most
I
elaborate thing I've ever made.
I do intend to watch it. It was just one of those things where I think at the time I was finishing up my Pirates of Drinax, and I didn't want to be like sucked into the like, come on, okay, guys, work with me here. And so
It when I first read it, it felt like a Call of Cthulhu adventure. It really does.
really,
And
okay.
it was only after I had actually done it, and I think I was beginning to get ready to start reviewing it. So like I think we are like 6 or 7 chapters in before I actually started my review, and I'm like looking up the author, and it's Gareth Hanrahan, who's done
Of
like
course.
Fall of Delta Green and stuff like that. I was like, oh, that's why this feels,
Mm,
even though it's sci-fi, this is why it has that feeling. One of the
mm.
biggest, you know what the hook is? Your uncle dies and you have to take care of his estate until you go to the funeral.
Wow. Yeah, that definitely sounds Call of Cthulhu.
That's not travel. That's how Call of Cthulhu is. So
Yeah. No,
it 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 hit every button of like, no, this works. I can do this. So loved it.
I really want to get him on the show at some point in the future. He's on my list. I actually sent out a query. I haven't heard anything back. So Gareth, if you're listening, which I doubt, I'm trying to get in
I
touch with you.
well actually he and I chatted a while back when I was finishing up Secrets of the Ashes. He just wanted to like chat with me once I was done. And then
Nice.
like once I was done, I was like, okay, dude, my schedule just blew up, so I actually do not have time. So now I'm at the like, so we're trying to like figure out when we can do it now.
Okay.
But it was just one of those like, yeah, but I didn't know. I just read it. I'm like, this somehow still feels like a Call of Cthulhu story. This somehow feels more like a lot of the Call of Cthulhu snares than the Call of Cthulhu snares I was just reading
Mm.
that I ruled out to play this. So,
Yeah, this he has like super talent.
oh
It's
yeah,
really impressive.
but it's also across multiple genres and stuff like that. So at least didn't get locked into you only do this. So,
Right.
okay, next question. Give me one more.
One more? All right.
Give me one more.
Hold on. Um, oh, so another one from More Chill. He asked a lot of really good questions. Um, do you have or who is your favorite reviewer on YouTube besides yourself? I guess you could say yourself if you want to.
Um, geez, I actually don't really like have one. Because
Mm,
I'll kind of flip between depending on what it is I'm looking for. Um, Mostly because stuff like D&D just does not interest me.
yep.
So it rules out a lot. I don't really do OSR games, so it rules out a lot more. So not really. I mean, I'll check out what Dave Thermivore says just because I sometimes just
Hmm.
kind of like his analysis. I'll say what Ben Milton has to say about things, mostly because I like them personally,
Right.
and sometimes they have like a very interesting analysis. And then sometimes I read, it, I'm like, I don't agree. Um, like a lot of people have really touted Quinn's Quest.
Okay.
I haven't seen much Quinn's Quest. Like I do get like I do admit I might feel a slight bunch in the panties when people are like, he's the only guy who has to play it before he reviews it. He's so novel. No one's ever done that before. So yes, I have come across that. I read it. I'm like,
Really?
oh yeah, a lot. And so, but it's also there's certain things that he'll sometimes say that mm, because he doesn't claim he's the only one that reads it before. So it's like I don't hold that against him.
Right, right.
But it's like I think when he was doing Delta Green and he talked about like how Call of Cthulhu it's only the 1920s and Delta Green is modern day. It's like that's not the difference between them. Like,
Right.
that's not the difference between those two games at all. I play both. At the time period that it's set in is not the difference, because you can pick up the Call of Cthulhu Keeper Guide and it's got modern day rules. So but they're very different games.
Yeah.
But when you go by that, and then you kind of like are using that to like, because he's Blessed Call of Cthulhu, I'm protective. It is my favorite game at the end of the day. And I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. So I ended up turning it off. But also, I think that was one where he talks about Ultra Green, but then he talks about Impossible Landscapes. We're starting our Impossible Landscapes campaign this Friday.
Oh,
We
rad.
did our session 0, and we've been gearing up for it, and like got all the characters ready to go. So it's like, so I did know like there's a point in this video I have to turn it off.
Mm.
So I basically I hit that. It was like off. I'm now distracted by the fact that something was said that is just inherently wrong.
Mm.
A part of where my review policy came from was when I would come across reviewers where they would say stuff that was just inherently wrong, which is like, they'll say this about the game or the adventure. It's like, that's not true. And but it was like a big basis for their opinion. I realized it's real obvious you never played this. And sometimes he still gets a little bit of probation, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know what I can trust. Because
Mm.
if you're saying that it says stuff that I know isn't there, what I don't know. Because like, 'cause I remember it was like reviews for like Pulp Cthulhu at first. Like, there was one that was like, it made me mad because it's usually if they're very glowing or they're very scathing
Mm.
reviews. And I'm like, but you don't know. Like, tell me it is that. So that is where that came from. Of like kind of my policies is then there was. And this, by the way, it's a terrible adventure. This one is it's called Madness in London Town.
Okay.
Goodman Games did it. It's awful, but there was something about it. I wanted to run it. Wasn't sure what something about it made me go. I can overcome whatever problems it has. That's how I know I've got a good one. Is if whatever problems it has, I can be perfectly aware of, but at the same time, I'm like, nah, I want to fix this. That's
Right.
where it's like, well, something about it is so good that I'm excited to, versus like, oh man, I have to fix all this. I have to make the first 7 chapters in Beyond the Mountains of Madness at least exciting. That's a chore
Right.
versus excited. So I'm trying to read reviews from Madison London Town, and there's one that is so scathing. It's actually by my friend Pookie. It was long before I met him,
Okay.
but it was like really scathing. And he said certain things. And then when I was digging through old Reddit threads at the time, which they're now like a lot older because, it was 9 years ago I talked about the game, but where people were blasting this adventure, but they're blasting over the dumbest stuff. Where they're like, well, underneath the British Museum, there's like, tigers and lions that were both in the African exhibit. Don't they understand how it is? Like, this game's unplayable. I'm like, the stats are the same. Why don't we just go online? Say, why do we care? But people were kind of like grabbing onto nits
Mm.
that say, I could fix this with half a second's thought. I need somebody to tell me that's a thing to look out for, and I can fix it, and it's not a
Right.
big deal. And like, how does it play? And nobody could tell me how it played, but everybody could tell me it was the worst ever. And somebody somewhere had said, there's no way to successfully run this adventure.
Mm.
So when
Challenge
I did my
accepted.
review, I stated as a big middle finger, as a game master who has successfully run this adventure, it's all Madness in London Town. And that became a catchphrase. So like, I think later on, like a few years later, I did like a video. I was like, I don't need to always say that, and I didn't say it. And then people are like, oh my god, does that mean you didn't run it successfully? So I'm like, shit, now I have to like say that every time. People think that, people think that the game went off the rails or something. But
Right.
uh, but that's also an example of like, that is a bad adventure. I mean, there's a lot. It needs a lot of work, man. But is it easy work? Once there's a problem, like, can I fix this in like just 2 seconds? Cool. That's not a problem. Versus the ones where, how do I condense several chapters into one exciting thing, or how do I make this plot make sense? Like, those are big steps. And if you're excited about it, it doesn't feel that big. But
Right.
if you're looking at it like, damn, then it's something a whole lot bigger. So
Yeah.
kind of going back to like, when do you put down a module of like, does this sound like work to me, or does this
Yeah.
sound like, oh yeah, no problem, man, I can knock this thing out, no sweat? So did I even answer this last question you asked, or did I just start rambling?
No, I think you did. Um, I,
Okay.
I, I think that's kind of like Mike Shea from Sly Flourish. He basically reviews, well, he plays the D&D campaign settings for 5e, and he basically judges how good the campaign is on how much work he has to do to like salvage it or to make it run for his table. And he's kind of like, if I have to do a lot of work, is it worth the work? Like if I it's not that I'm opposed to doing work, but I want to do fun work. I don't want to have to like fix this whole thing because it was poorly done in the first place. So I
No, and
think
that is kind of how you look at it. Like, is this work, or is I'm making something better?
right,
Like when it comes to like tabletop games, one of the things I say is like, but a lot of the role playing games that were made in the 70s and 80s, it is a new medium. People are throwing out a lot of ideas. Some of them work, some of them don't. And just about every game required that the game master have a little bit of game designer in them, and they had to house
right.
rule to make the dang thing fully playable. That was just kind of like accepted. Like, you get the game, and you do the finishing touches, and you're gonna house rule it. And this is just
Yeah.
how we approached it. Well, now we've got 50 years worth of game design experience. We've seen a lot of ideas get thrown against the wall. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. We've taken the ones that worked, we've honed them. The marketplace of ideas is huge. If I find a game that is not perfectly playable, like right out of the book, I'm like, wow, it's an accomplishment you managed to fail this test, because there's so many wonderful examples. So house rules to me now are, we're going to make a good thing better.
Mm,
We don't have the, well, I got to fix this to make it work. Like, those days are done. Like
mm,
Cyberpunk 2020's Internet, which, love that game, but its net running rules unplayable. just,
right.
just horrible. But that was, you just kind of accepted that, and you moved on. But now, like when you look at a lot of contemporary games, you just pick it up. I was like, that thing should be fully playable right now.
Mm,
And all that game design, I want to make some house rules. There should not be a feeling of work involved, of like, I need to fix this. It's like, nah, I'm going to make this badass, is kind of how you would approach it. And so that Mike Shea approach of like, was this work to make the changes, or was this like fun to make the changes? I don't mind doing the work, but what was my mindset coming in? Like, yeah, I made a bunch of changes, but they were all awesome because it was awesome. I started, and now it's even more awesome. That's fun. Versus, yeah, so the second act just completely fell apart. It doesn't make sense. So I had to like build it myself.
right.
It's like, that's work. Like that,
Yeah.
because that's like, that sounds like a chore, even if you put equal amounts of effort and time in.
Well, this has been really awesome. Like honestly so glad to have had the opportunity to chat with you and to like talk about all this cool stuff. Um, I wanted to finish off with what kind of advice would you offer to a novice or a veteran GM?
Okay. It's kind of the same thing, but different ways. With a novice GM, uh, yeah, don't be afraid to suck. Try the new thing. I think a lot of novice GMs fall into the problem of, there's they're very hesitant to like really step out and do it, because they it has to be this perfect before I can begin. It's never going to be that perfect. Just
Right.
freaking go for it. Don't be afraid to suck. For a veteran GM, the same thing, because veteran GMs, it can become very easy to get stuck in, I am really good at this, I am the best at this, but then they stop looking outside of whatever that is. And then once
Mm,
they do, because it's not what they're familiar with, it's not what they're a true badass master of. And but if they need to be not afraid to suck, they need to be able to step out, try a different genre, try a different
mm,
game, try a different approach. Like, try that West Marches game, or try that, whatever it is. And no, it might not be the most the comfortable badass thing that you've been doing for 15 years, but it almost has always been that when I then go back to what it was I was good at, I'm now better because I have
Hmm.
more in my toolbox. So my advice to both is just don't be afraid to suck. Keep pushing, new things and trying out new things. Don't be intimidated by it not being your comfort zone.
No, that's really good. I like that. That makes a lot of sense. So where can people get your stuff and give you money?
Where you go? I like money. No, so when it comes to like books, you can Amazon, Barnes and Noble, etc. So you have to do it online. It was really awesome back when they used to carry my stuff in house. That was a cool feeling. But pretty much it's all online now. Audible. I am an audiobook addict, so
Okay.
all my stuff is on Audible. When it comes to like my channels and stuff like that, it's just check it out. I've got a Patreon. It's more of a big tip jar.
Okay.
I think if I had a crew under me that could assist, I could like make a lot of like patron exclusive stuff. But since I am like a one man show, it's like, man, the channel is 100% of my time and energy. So, but that's where you can find it. Of course, in the swag, there's like shirts and all that stuff. So,
Nice.
whatever.
Okay, cool. So I have
Just write me a
links.
check.
All right. Everybody get your checkbooks out. Do you guys even know what checkbooks are?
It's like, where would I even take a check at this point? Just now a stress.
So I have links to your website. I got a link to the Modern Mythos podcast, which is freaking awesome, and I probably need to get John on this show at some point too.
Yeah, Modern Mythos is mostly me and John. It's just like two dudes just BSing. It's like pretty much that was his whole pitch to me when he was like, "Hey, do you want to do this thing?" It's like, "What do I do?" I was like, "It's mostly just gonna be us just yammering." I'm like, "Oh, okay, great. Sounds
That's
perfect."
awesome. And of course, I have your YouTube channel. Oh, and I have a link to Amazon for your books and that Onyx Ashes of Onyx. That sounds so freaking awesome. So I'm gonna get that one.
Ashes of Onyx is probably my most technically good book when it comes to like technical, like the honing of the craft. My favorite is the actual second Valdican novel, Hanasier, which is like a straight up horror.
Okay,
So I've actually kind of followed a like save the world, big team adventure with like this noir New Orleans horror. It's a sequel.
nice.
I want to
Okay,
actually change genres before I kind of like get cemented into one thing. That's actually my favorite, but I think Ashes of Onyx is my best. So
nice. Okay, and then like you said, those ones. Is it they're out of order, or you need to read them in order?
with the Valdican series,
Yeah.
you don't need to read them in order, but it's best if you do.
Okay. So it's the Black Raven trilogy or a series that you're talking about that you can read out of order.
Yeah, you can pretty much grab it an adventure and do it. And the theory is you'll quickly figure out all the information you need is there because it's just a thief adventure and they're kind of sorcerers just fun things.
Totally, totally down with thieves. All right. Well, I just want to thank you very much, Seth,
Oh,
for
thank you for having me. This is fun.
being on the show, helping me plunge the dungeon and flush evil down the drain. And for all of you listeners, please follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky, and now on Discord. And I was on X. I mean, I technically still am on X, but holy shit, dude. I can't. I can't. So until next time, Union members, plungers up.